Hello, my name's Mark Saunders and this is a YouTube video presentation on sorting techniques and their use in qualitative interviewing. It's one of a series of YouTube presentations on my YouTube channel, Mark Saunders on Research Methods, and you can find a link to this on the bottom left hand corner of each slide. In this general overview of sorting techniques, we're going to start off by describing sorting techniques and the associated terminology used in them. Then we're going to look at the actual nature of sorting before going into more detail on the different types of sorting. And within this we're going to look at sorting of objects such as Lego pieces in the picture. We're going to look at the sorting of pictures, and finally we're going to look at the sorting of cards. What we're not going to be looking at is Q-sorts, which is another sorting technique. Then we'll finish with a summary and obviously references and further reading. So if we start off looking at sorting techniques, they're aligned with what we call a constructivist approach, and that's basically saying that reality is constructed by people and it links to personal construct theory and Kelly's work, and in particular that people make sense of the world by categorising it and can describe their world with their own categorisation, and they can do that with reasonable validity and reliability. And they're used to find categories that people use and to develop hierarchies, so to get participants to develop hierarchies. And in terms of the terminology associated with sorting techniques, we have a construct. That's the attribute used by the individual participant in research terms to describe something so that they can sort constructs. Then we have the criterion. That's the basis on which things are actually sorted. The category or categories that people classify the objects or the pictures or the cards into. And then the facet, the viewpoint by which the sorting is actually being undertaken. So let's start off by looking at terminology, and we're looking here and thinking about how can these Lego minifigure parts be actually sorted. And so let's start off by looking at the construct, and here we see the construct as the body part. And the body part, as you can see here, are things like those little blue plastic things of parts of the body. Then we look at the shape, and here we can see that the different parts have different shapes, and you can see that there. And in terms of categories, we can actually look at here, and we can actually group them into torsos, which have arms attached already, and we can legs, heads and hair as body parts. And if you look up to the top of the picture, you'll also see that there are hats as well, and we're not actually sorting those parts here. We're only interested in the construct of body parts. And the facet or viewpoint in which we're doing this is from the viewpoint of actually building a minifigure, and so we have a picture of a minifigure at the very end. And in terms of the sorts of sorting we can do open or closed sorting, so it's like a binary division, and we can do single sorts or repeat sorts. Now in open sorting, participants develop their own categories and sort the objects or the pictures or the cards into these. And subsequently, as part of an interview, they may be asked to describe or explain the process, or sometimes they can be asked to actually talk as they're doing the sorting and explain why, and that can be audio recorded. In closed sorts, participants are given predefined categories and asked to sort them into these categories. They may, for example, just be asked to rank items, or they may be asked at the same time to explain and describe the process, or they may be asked to do this afterwards separately. And sortings can be done as a one-off, or they can be done as repeat sorts. So you sort a group into two piles and then say, right, now take this pile and sort it into another pile. So you have a series of multiple sorts occurring. So let's look at types of sort. The first type of sort is an object sort, and here we see the objects of Lego pieces. This is quite helpful because we can use all senses to investigate. So we can use touch and we can use sight. Sometimes we can use smell as well, or indeed taste, but not always. It depends on the objects. The trouble is with this that some objects may have irrelevant or distracting features. obviously not the case in Lego. And then there are practical considerations in terms of the size of the object, or it could be if people were sorting things by taste. It could be that some people might be allergic to the food. We have to think of those through. But let's look at this in a little bit more detail. An objective sort identifies how people, our participants, naturally categorise and sort objects. And it looks at the processes that are involved in making sorting decisions. And within this, obviously, there are factors that can influence the accuracy and speed of sorting of these objects. How familiar are people with it? How complex are the criteria, especially if we're giving them criteria rather than them actually deciding on their own criteria. So we could think of this in terms of an object sorters, looking at how do people categorise and sort household waste for recycling, and how do they make these decisions. And here we'd actually be trying to understand it to actually improve recycling, and also to improve people not just chucking everything into the dustbin. Let's now look at a picture sort. Here we're only using visual information, and that's a lot more practical for most types of sorting. And this, because of this, we've reduced sensory input, and we're only basing the sort on partial information. So let's have a look at an example of this. And here we have the picture sort, and this identifies how people naturally categorise and sort pictures. And remember, the pictures are a particular thing, so you can relate it, say, to tourism, to hospitality, to human resource management, and choose pictures as appropriate. And again, we're looking at the process involved in making and sorting decisions, and the factors that influence the accuracy and speed of object sorting. And again, issues of familiarity and the complexity of criteria are incredibly important. So how do potential customers categorise aspects of a safari experience? And so we would have a series of pictures taken of the entire safari experience and then see how they categorise them. And this could then help us in terms of how we might market those experiences as the aspects which are crucial to customers from their sorting. And obviously interviews would allow us to go into more detail about why those aspects were important as we were doing the sorting. The final type of sort we want to talk about is a card sort. And here we have no detail other than the words or phrases that are on the cards. And here participants have to know what we're talking about. They have to use their imagination to imagine those words. So it's important that we actually do the sort on entities that are known to participants. And so the card sort actually looks at how people naturally categorise and sort cards of words and written statements on them. So it can be quite varied in terms of what you actually put on the cards. And the processes that are involved that are making these decisions, we can then actually ask questions in a subsequent interview, which could flow directly on from the sorting, or we can ask them to describe the processes that are actually undertaking the sort. And again, as before, there are going to be factors that influence the accuracy and the speed of objective sorting, and we can look at those as well. So let's have a look at an example here. So how do employees feel about the recent changes at their organisation and why? And so the card sort will look at how they feel about these recent changes. And you can see in the picture the cards have words like comfortable, confused, powerless, overwhelmed, and so on. And those words will be chosen from the academic literature on research on how employees' reactions to change, and then we could move into a subsequent interview to actually talk about why. And indeed there is a YouTube video on using card sorts in this way. So in summary, card sorts and sorting in general are simple procedures where we can use objects, pictures and cards to actually get participants to say what's more important, what's less important, or some other form of categorisation. These are really enjoyed by participants, and it helps maintain their attention in the research. And as they're doing the sorting, they reveal common but often implicit patterns as to what they feel in terms of categorising and labelling things. And we can use follow-up questions to seek understanding and find out in effect why. And combined with interviews, obviously qualitative interviews, this provides insights as to why, as part of they're doing this as part of a simultaneous mixed method study. We're going to finish by looking at some further reading and references. So we've got a few papers here. The paper by Best and colleagues looks at theme elicitation with participants, and this is open card sorting. So rather than telling participants to group them into predefined categories, it's actually allowing the participants to develop their own categories. So an interesting paper. Next we have Lobinger and Bratner, and here they're looking at picture sorting. So it's cards with pictures on, and within this they're also talking about the Q sort technique, which I haven't spoken about in this video presentation, but there's some more detail there if you wish to do so. And finally, the Rugg and McGeorge paper is a tutorial on using card sorts with words on, and this, although old, is a really useful read. I hope you found this YouTube video presentation useful, and I'd be really grateful if you'd subscribe to my channel, Mark Saunders on Research Methods, and also told your friends and colleagues about the channel as well. I'm adding new videos to the channel nearly every week, and hopefully they'll be of help to you in your own research.